Hey Mark, lovely to see you at
You
Eastdale
too.
Lakes again. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Five top tips. Five
Okay.
top tips to catch carp. What are they? Down
Here?
here. That's
Here.
here.
Okay. So what I would say is this is quite a silty lake bed or soft lake bed, but there are areas where it's a little bit firmer and a little bit deeper. You can find them slight depressions in the silt where the fish are obviously fed, you cleared that layer of silt away. It may only be 6 inches deeper, but a little bit firmer. Those are the areas I would look for. You don't need to get out with a marker float and cast around forever. Just have a little feel down with the lead. Feel your lead down to the bottom. If it takes a little bit longer to touch down and it feels a little bit firmer, those are the spots I would concentrate on. You don't want to be reeling in any debris on your lead setup or on your hook. If you can reel in without any sort of debris on your hook, then that's usually a good spot to try.
Top tip one, top tip two.
Top tip two. Um, as I mentioned before, it is quite silty, and when the fish are feeding that silt, you will see them fizzing up. And when they are feeding in that fashion, I would always fish a bottom bait. When I've had fish fizzing on top of me and I'm fishing pop-ups, those fish, they're feeding in that layer of sediment, and even an inch high pop-up can just be an inch too high. So when you've got fish feeding on you like that, look to fish with a bottom bait.
What about a top tip about timings?
Timings, yeah, I see a lot of people recasting at bite time. Now, I think you can get bites anytime on here, but I would say that the best times to catch fish are usually into darkness up until around 10:30 in the morning. After that, you will still catch fish, but those are your prime bite times. And I see a lot of people at first light recasting, chucking at what is their best chance of a bite, and they're making too much disturbance and it's costing them fish.
Okay, so we've talked about timings. We've talked about the bottom, the lake
Yeah.
bottom. What about the upper layers? Any top tips?
Yeah, these fish are really quick to react to the sun. Even on really cold, frosty days, if the lake goes still and the sun comes up, those fish will rise in the water. So don't ignore zigs. Even on a cold, frosty morning, if it's bright and clear and sunny, those fish can come up within a foot of the surface. So don't ignore zigs on here.
Okay, any more top tips? This is putting on the spot now. Top tip
I would
five.
say my final top tip would be bait choice. Now, I have found one bait in particular has worked better for me on here, and that is the CC Moore Pacific Tuna. I don't know what it is about this lake and that bait. They seem to absolutely love it, and especially when it's being coated in the hot Schritz or liquid. That combination, Pacific Tuna, hot Schritz or liquid, it just seems to outperform anything else I've ever used on here.
I think you nailed it there. Five top tips.
Good.
Good.
Cheers. Don't ignore the margins. Those margins are really undercut. Fish get really close to the bank, and if you've got any
Yeah.
sorts of trees overhanging, it's really good to poke on right underneath the tree because they get right underneath the branches, really close to the bank.
Awesome.
And as for hook bait wise, if you're seeing fish fizzing over your spot, for me that means they're down there feeding in the silt, and that fine layer of silt on the bottom. And in those instances, I have found that bottom baits do work best. Even by fishing like a short pop-up over the top, maybe it's just an inch. I think it's an inch too high. If you're seeing the fish fizzing over your spots, sheeting over your spots, they're doing so because they're in there feeding in the silt. So fish a bottom bait. However, when it can be tricky and you're not seeing fish fizzing in places and not feeding hard, then I would fish a pop-up. In those instances, the fish are just tipping down, maybe it's having something to eat, then righting themselves and just moving along, just eating the odd mouthful. In those instances, I would fish a pop-up, and the colour I found to be best on here is washed out pink. So I use the washed out pink Carp Freaks. The little small ones, the 12 mil ones, just popped up by an inch. That is usually enough to tempt a bite when other baits fail.
Top man. Thank you very much.